welcome you all. It's a joy for me to be here again and to share with you all some thoughts about this very important subject, which is who we really are. We will try to inquire all together. So if you have any questions while I'm speaking, you can raise your hand and we can discuss this. Otherwise, we will have some time after the talk to discuss the subject. But it is curious that we ask ourselves who we are. Well, actually, most people don't ask themselves this question. You know, they assume, well, I'm Pablo, I'm a scientist or a theosophist or whatever. But thoughtful people always have this, like, a silent question that says, but after all, who am I really? From several points of view, I am, for example, a father or a friend or a businessman, or because we tend to act in different ways in different environments. So am I the person that is patient, or am I the person that reacts? Am I only this physical body? Are my emotions and thoughts some subjective subproduct of our physiological working, as science says? Is there a soul? And even if we believe that there could be something like a soul, what is it? When we die and we are the soul, what is that? Is it just myself but without a body? Or is it a more perfected version of myself? Is the soul eternal? Is it pure, or can it be corrupted? You know, all these questions are important, and we are going to see why, not only from a philosophical point of view. They are important because according to our view, will be the way we live and we face every one of our experiences in life. And also our view is not only the belief that we have. With view, I refer to something that is far deeper. I may believe that I have a soul just because somebody taught, when I was a kid, taught me that I have a soul. But what do I actually think about myself? If I think that I'm only the body, then my whole life will be organized to please the body. So by view, I mean our real perception of what we are. And even if in religious views, in religious philosophies, there are different approaches to what we are. For example, probably most of us were raised in a Christian or Judeo system, maybe some in Islam, an Islamic view. And usually these religions have a view that we are inherently flawed, that we are sinners, we were born in sin, and that we cannot be perfect. Only God is perfect. As we are going to see, this view can be very helpful or can be a hindrance for the spiritual life. So we are going to examine the different views and see how they can help or not in our daily life. But usually, for example, in Christianity, we think, or the idea of Christianity is that we are inherently flawed, incapable of reaching truth by ourselves or reaching salvation by ourselves. We need a Savior because of that fact. By ourselves, we cannot do it. So there is Jesus in Christianity, and if we believe in Jesus, then we can get the grace of God, and it is the grace of God that will save us. Sometimes the mystics would say that the grace of God is is not something that we get because we own it or we deserve it. We get the grace of God whenever God wants to give us the grace. In some other views, we get the grace of God only after we worked on ourselves in certain directions to be able to receive it. But usually the idea is that God will give us the grace and that will save us. So this is one view. There is another view, another religious view that could be represented by Zen Buddhism, for example, or Vedanta. The Advaita. Advaita means non-dualistic. The non-dualistic approaches that say, hey, we are already enlightened. We are not sinners. We are not even limited. We are enlightened. But we don't know it. And the fact that we don't know that we are enlightened is the hindrance. Because we think of ourselves as this limited personality, and therefore we act as if we were this limited personality. But actually we are not. We are much more. So we are already enlightened beings. So who are we? Are we this flawed, limited personality? Or are we this omniscient, already enlightened being? Or maybe we are both or neither. Let us see how the Theosophical view explains these two contradictory views and how they can help us, as I said, in the spiritual life. And by spiritual life, I mean to live our daily life in a way that nourishes what is real in us. So in the Theosophical view, when we examine human beings, we usually see that there are 7 different aspects. I'm not going to go in detail into these 7 different aspects. We can use the threefold description of human beings that was used by Plato and also in early Christianity of spirit, soul, and body. So the idea is that there is in human beings something that we could call the spirit. There is also something that we could call the soul, which is different from spirit in this view. Usually in Christianity we have lost the distinction between spirit and soul. There are some saints and church fathers that make this distinction, but today it is usually not known. And then we are a body, or we have a body. The idea of the spirit is that this is a perfect, the divine spark in ourselves. This, according to the Theosophical view, the spirit is a divine spark which is in itself perfect because it's a divine. It is complete. It is eternal. It is in itself joy and peace and harmony, all the virtues that we usually regard as desirable. Now, this spirit is universal. It's not that I have my spirit, you have your spirit. We all are part of the one universal self, if we want to call it in this way. Actually, each one of us are an expression of ourselves, of what we really are. So this is something that is not very common in the Western view, Western religious view. We all think we are separate and different, and we are at a certain level. But ultimately speaking, we are the divine, which is universal. For example, to give you an image that you can relate to, the way our bodies look is different in each one of us. So at that level, we are all different. The way we feel is different. The way we think is different. Now, imagine yourself in a peaceful state with no thoughts and a deep silence. No thoughts. There is a possibility of reaching this state, for example, in meditation or when contemplating nature, we may experience this state, for more or less time, of deep silence. In this state of deep silence, there is a sense of being complete. Because we feel that we are not complete when we think, oh, I wish I had this, oh, I need to do that. But when there is no thought, there is just a state of being, and there is no awareness of needs, of limitations, of wishes. So in this state of deep silence, there is not even the thought, I am Pablo. There is simply a state of being. Now, is my silence, my mind is in silence, is different from your silence? Is your silence different from anybody else's? Because thoughts, yes, they are different, emotions vary, but how can silence be different? The experience of silence is different. So there is a state in which we are all the same, this deep state of silence. When we talk about spirit, we are talking about a far deeper state. But in the same way that we can see how there is a state which is the same in each one of us, and we can all experience this state of silence individually. You are experiencing the state, she's experienced the state, and I am experiencing that state. And it seems that we are personally experiencing the state. But the state is the same. At that level, when we are in silence, there is no difference. We don't feel any difference. So, in a sense, this can give you an idea about how there can be a single nature that is animating, expressing through all of us. And it is said that the people who realize the spiritual nature, they realize that they are everywhere, they are the whole, and if anything, they are a particular expression of that whole. We will see this in some more practical terms later, but that is the idea of the spirit. The spirit is this perfect state that is a unity, that is a totality. Then there is a soul. The soul is our individuality. It is at this level where there is the sense of being separate or different from the rest. Not so much separate. The soul in its pure state is not really separate from any other soul, but is, as I said, a particular expression of that universal spirit. This soul expresses in ourselves as that silent sense of being, of existing. There are two senses of, or there are two feelings in ourselves that are related but they are different. For example, there is the sense of identity. I am Pablo, and how do I know that I am Pablo, or how is this identity sustained? It is sustained by the idea of I have this look, I have this name, I have this past, I have these experiences, and they are all sustained by memory. Now, when a person loses his or her memory, that person also loses the sense of identity. The person doesn't know who he or she is. So you can see how the sense of identity needs memory, because we tie by memory all our personal story. Now, even in the cases where the person doesn't remember anything at all about what he is, he still knows that he is. He doesn't know who he is. But there is this sense of being, of existing, that is beyond memory, beyond thoughts, beyond any mental or emotional activity. We know we are. So this is a pure sense of I amness, let's say. I feel that I am. Now, when the soul is attached to a body, when the soul is born into a body, this pure sense of being, which is not identified with anything, it's just this sense I exist. this pure sense of being becomes attached to the body. And now it's not just I am, but is I am this body, this name. So the sense of identity that I was talking about. So we are right now in this state where the soul, working through the body, thinks that we are the body. If we could realize that we are the spirit, then our experience of life would be completely different. Why? Because, for example, the spirit is eternal. The body, it may last 100 years, but it will end. So out of this knowledge that we have an end, come a lot of things: fears, aggression, ambition, a lot of problems, selfishness, conflict, come because we think that we are going to die, and therefore we have to protect ourselves. We have to try to enjoy life before it ends. We have to procure to ourselves the things that we need. Imagine how you would live if you knew that you are not going to die, ever. What would be the change? Also, the spirit is perfect in itself. It's complete. It doesn't need anything from outside. Not that it is selfish, but it is complete in the way it is. So imagine how you would live if you don't need things. In the deep sense, probably if you have money, you would help people. If you have a skill, you would use it to help people, because why would you use all those things for yourself if you don't need anything? Emotionally also, not only you don't need physical things, but you don't need things emotionally. People like the Buddha or Jesus or great people, they were able to love in such a deep way because they didn't need from people around something in particular. We have conflicts when we need something from a person or a situation, and the person or the situation is not giving that to us. But if we are complete and we don't need something, then there can be a real love where we do and give whatever we have for the welfare of that person or group or situation. So if we could realize that we are complete in ourselves and we don't need anything, then we could live in a completely different way. If we realize that we are, joy, our real state is a state of happiness and joy, we wouldn't be trying to generate joy by acquiring things, modifying the circumstances, or the ways that we usually do. So it is really important that the soul, which is right now identified with the body and the personality, can realize that it is actually a spark of the universal spirit. Out of the connection between the soul and the body comes the psyche, our psychological self, our mind and emotions, our personality. When the soul that is originally pure is connected to the body and identifies itself with the body, appears the sense of I am this, my personality, my psychological self. So, coming back to the religious views in Christianity, for example, or Islam, in Vedanta or Zen Buddhism, they are addressing two different levels of human being. They are both talking to the soul, but one tradition is talking to the soul in the body, and the other tradition is talking to the soul that realizes that it is the spirit. So we are going to see, at least that's what I think, and let us see if that is true. In Christianity, we were saying there is this idea that we are flawed in ourselves, inherently. And if we think that they are talking about the personality, the psyche, and the body, we can see how the message that is behind this approach is you think you are the personality, you think that through your personality you can attain truth, but actually what you have to do is to stop feeding the sense that you are the personality. You as the psyche are not able to perceive truth because you are a mistaken idea. For example, if we are dreaming, we are sleeping and we are dreaming, and we think that in the dream we are a poor person, a homeless person. We are dreaming that. And terrible things are happening to us. And we suffer. It's all in our minds, but we suffer. If we wake up, our heart is beaten and we are sad. So while the dream lasts, it's a reality for ourselves, but it is in our minds. So we think that we are this homeless person and terrible suffering happening. And if we want to realize what we really are, we have to stop dreaming. We have to wake up. It's not that the homeless person in the dream will realize that we are really the person that is sleeping and the homeless person will still be there. The homeless person is just an imaginary illusion that has to stop, to end. But if in the dream we keep feeding this idea that we are the homeless person, then we are prolonging the dream. We have to defy the idea that we are the homeless person. So in this view, since we think we are the body, what Christianity is saying, you have to give up that idea. You are not going, if you think that you as the body are able to perceive truth and to get salvation, you are just feeding this idea that you are the body, that you are the psyche. So no, you cannot do it. You need something higher, which in this view, is the spirit, because it is talking to the soul in the body. So they say you need something higher to rescue. So they are trying to generate a sense of surrender, of humility, of giving up this strong idea that we are this personality, so that the real in us can be expressed. In The Voice of the Silence, that is a theosophical book, it is said, the self of matter and the self of spirit can never meet. One of the twain must disappear. There is no place for both. In the sense of either you think you are limited to the body, or you don't. You know that you are not. So these two identities, the idea I am Pablo, or the idea I am the whole, cannot be together. If you know that you are the whole, you know that Pablo is just an expression of yourself as any other expression. If you think that you are Pablo, you cannot think that you are the whole. I mean, we can have contradictory ideas, but I'm talking about perception, real perception. So Christianity is saying, give up your idea that through your personality you are going to be able to realize truth. And all the Christian practice is to weaken this sense of I am the personality. Now, the problem is that when this is not interpreted in the right way, this generates in people a sense of powerlessness or dependence, or generates just a blind faith. Okay, if I cannot do anything, I just have to believe in the Savior and He will save me. It may generate a passive attitude. So this is why it is important to understand the teaching in the right context, so that we know what this is talking about. So as we surrender to the divine, what we are doing is letting go of this self-will, this self-centered will that is trying to handle everything according to the limited views of our psyche. Now, in the case of Vedanta and Zen, for example, and other traditions also, they say, no, you are not a sinner, you are not a personality, you are already enlightened. You are not flawed, you are already enlightened. Now, they are talking about this aspect, the soul blended with the spirit. They are talking about the perfection in us that is our essence. Now, this also has a problem, this view, if it is not understood in the right way. Because when a person listens, oh no, you are already enlightened, usually they think, I, the personality, the psyche, I'm already enlightened, so I don't have to do anything. I can be cruel, or I can be this or that. I'm already enlightened. This is just an expression of enlightenment. And then we have these ideas, just let the inner child guide you, or just go with the flow. Don't check yourself. You are enlightened. Why are you trying to control yourself? And that is, that only puts us, makes us slaves of our reactions. So any philosophy, if it is misunderstood, can produce the opposite of what the philosophy really is aiming at. So we have to understand when they say you are enlightened, what that means. There is in Vedanta a famous saying that is that, let me show you in Sanskrit in case you run across this, tat tvam asi. It means you are that. That is being Brahman, the divine. So you are that. Now, who is that you? You, the personality, are the divine. This could be translated as you are gods. Sometimes it is translated in that way, especially in the New Age approach. You are gods or you are the divine. Now, who is you? You is not the personality. It's not that this very limited expression of what I really am is the divine. It's like saying, we have the white color, the white light, that contains all the colors. So one of the colors is blue, is contained in the white light. But the white light is not contained in the blue. So it's like saying to the color blue, you are the white light. No, it's not. But originally, your real nature is the white light. This is only a limited expression of what you are. So when we say you are that, we are saying, actually, you are not your fears. You are not your desires. You are not your wishes. You are not your ambition. Because you are that is already perfect. So drop it. Drop your ambitions, drop your desires, and when you do that, you will find out that you are beyond that. Of course, it's not very easy to drop all these things just because somebody is saying it. There is a whole way of living that will allow us to do this, to get closer to this state. And we will discuss that a little bit. But the point is that when they say, you are the divine, what they are really saying is, you are not this, you are that. So drop this. It's saying exactly the same as Christianity, but from a different point of view. So we have to be careful not to use these ideas in the wrong way. If we use them in the right way, then we begin to realize what the essential message of this is. The idea is, essentially we are perfect. We are enlightened. We can use those words if you like them. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that we don't know it. And not only at the level of, intellect. Because what is the difference between an enlightened being and ourselves? A Buddha and ourselves. I mean, at the level of our real nature, in whatever way they describe it, in the different traditions, they do it in different ways. Our real nature is exactly the same. But that nature in a Buddha knows that is the whole, or in some schools of Buddhism, they talk about the Buddha nature. But in myself, it doesn't know it. So there is a difference at this level, not at the essential level. We are all the same, but at this level, the Buddha knows it, I don't know it. So the idea is that our life has to be lived in a way that allows me to realize, to remember, to discover who I really am. So for that there are different approaches and different practices that we can discuss in a little bit. Now before I go to some practical hints about this, is there any question or comment that you would like to?
I would just say they're both the same and that you're trying to bypass ego.
Yeah, the comment was that both are the same. They are trying to bypass the ego. And I think so. I think that's the idea. Again, the problem is that our ego is a false idea. We are not really the ego. And the ego is an instrument that is a very good tool, but is a very bad master, as it is sometimes said. If we don't know that we are not the ego, then we are the slaves of this ego. If we know that we are beyond, then we can use the ego to express on this plane, because we all need our mind, our emotions, our body to express here. Now, one thing is to express in the world, knowing that we are not only this, and therefore being free from fears and unhealthy desires and all this. And a different thing is to be in the world without knowing that, and therefore being caught in the desires and fears and all these manifestations. So the idea is to try to realize that we are not the psychological ego. Yeah, Ed, wait for the mic.
So this realization is not at the level of these ideas. These ideas or these divisions are sort of pointing the way, and it would be a mistake to think that what the Buddha has is the right idea.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, that's why personally I think that all serious tradition has a point. Now the problem is that we may not understand the point in the right way. I don't know if this is the right way. I'm just sharing the way I see it. But I do think that all these ideas, if they are rightly understood, they will lead us to an experience where we can see by ourselves who we really are. If we stay only at the level of ideas, then yes, you can choose one idea, the other, whatever is, more appealing to you. But if you understand the ideas, they will tell you or give you a hint about how to live so that you can actually realize what they are saying. And in that context, I think all the ideas are pointing out, the serious traditions are pointing out to the same truth from different points of view.
So are we saying that the basic truth for these beliefs that we've been looking at here is that we were created, our souls are perfect, but we have in our desires and our human interaction with our environment, so forth, we create these impediments that distance us from that purity of that soul where the happiness and joy is and the sense of freedom. Am I getting that?
Yeah. Again, the way we express it, depends on, different philosophies would express that idea in different ways. Some would talk about creation or emanation or evolution. Some would talk about soul or just about, an universal nature. So the words belong to certain philosophies and to other philosophies use them in different ways. But the essential idea is that in all of us, there is a nature that is pure. It's not personal in the way that we usually assume personality is. It's not like an extension of our ego. We don't know what it is. We will know it when we perceive it in a direct way. But there is a seed or an essence, or in whatever way you want to call it, that is perfect. And that is our real nature. Now we are confused by different, or because of different conditions, we are confused and we think that we are this limitation. And because of that confusion, we don't know how to live. And we are living in a way that is actually unhealthy and that is not going to bring us happiness. Because the psychological ego, for example, of course we all have certain basic needs. We are not denying the needs. If something is manifested, it has certain needs. We have a body and the body needs some food, needs some shelter, But outside those needs that are necessary for the preservation of the body, we create a lot of other needs based on the idea that they are going to bring us happiness. And they don't. We have been pursuing this since the beginning of human history. Every generation thinks that their conditions will bring happiness, without technology, with technology, without money, with money. And every generation is not able to reach a state of peace or harmony or, contentment. So obviously, the idea is that the people who claim that they are really happy in the real sense, all of them say, you can be happy only when you discover the real in you, not when you try to, get things from outside. So the central message is that. So the idea is, what can we do to discover what we really are? And of course, the whole spiritual discipline that is in any tradition is pointing out to this. And it's not something that you can give a recipe, do this, and then you will be happy or you will discover what you really are. But if we can see the essential direction we have to go towards, then we can begin to practice a different way of living that will lead us to that place. So, for example, one thing that is recommended in many traditions is meditation or prayer or silence. Why? Because when we live during our daily life, we are always working from our minds, our emotions, our body. So we are very active at these levels. And as we said, our bodies are different, our emotions are different, our thoughts also. All these levels, body, mind, emotions, belong to the personal nature in us. So if our consciousness is always entangled with the personal level, it is very difficult for this consciousness to be able to perceive something that is beyond. We have to create a space in our lives so that we can silence our personal activity and begin to research, begin to investigate. Is there anything beyond? So the idea in prayer, meditation, or simply keeping quiet is to try to see if we begin to feel at home in a state that is not thoughts, emotions, and body. And that is actually what happens as we meditate or keep periods of silence or pray in a contemplative prayer. Then little by little we begin to discover that when we are in silence, there is certain harmony, there is certain feeling of being that is pure, and that is a sign that our consciousness is recognizing something beyond our personality. So it is important, we all have different lifestyles, and sometimes in certain periods of your life you may have more or less time to devote to these things. But generally speaking, it is important if every person can take, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, that's enough, to be in silence, to slow down our psychological activity and physical activity and just be in silence. And you will see how if you can persevere, you will begin to discover a state that is very interesting in that silence. At the beginning, it will be like a void. What am I doing? I am wasting my time here. This is nothing. But that is because we cannot perceive it. If we persevere, little by little, we perceive that this is a state of being. So that is something that most traditions recommend. As you perceive that in meditation, then the idea is to extend it to your life and try to do things in your daily life from this background of being a witness, of watching. Because when we are thinking, we are, again, our consciousness is identified with the process of thinking and emotions and body. But if we can develop this sense of awareness or mindfulness, observation, again, what we are doing is like placing ourselves behind all these activities. Because you can watch that is in front of you, so to say. So if you are watching your thoughts, that means that your consciousness is going behind your thoughts. And again, that creates a space in that other dimension that is beyond our psyche. Then another thing that is prevalent in all serious traditions is a kind of morality. You know, Christianity has the Ten Commandments, yoga, especially the Raja Yoga, has what they call yama and niyama, the things that you have to practice and the things you have to abstain from. In Buddhism, you have, you know, the Noble Path, the Eightfold Noble Path. And you have several, in every tradition you have a set of morality. Now, why is this? Is this to please a god? Is this merely to be able to live together in a civil way? Actually, the morality, what it's doing, is to put in order in our consciousness. For example, when we are angry, we cannot feel love. So if our life is of such a nature that produces negative emotions, negative thoughts, it's very difficult to perceive that belongs to love, harmony, peace. So although our real nature is all this, love, harmony, peace, we can perceive it only when our personal nature begins to be in tune with that. If in this room we are all talking very loud and there is a very still voice, we cannot hear that. We have to make silence, keep quiet, and then we can hear that. So if our emotions and thoughts are constantly, you know, in this conflictive way of being, it's very difficult to perceive that there is harmony and peace. So whatever tradition you belong to, or if you are attracted to any formulation of morality, try to begin to work with that. You know, it doesn't matter what particular virtue you try to practice. All of them are the same in a sense. All of them are trying to put order in your nature. So begin to practice it, but with intelligence. Say, okay, let us think what is a characteristic of your personality that you would like to soften or change. So let's say I want to be more patient. Begin to try to live your life first becoming aware of your impatience. See how it works. You have to study whatever is going on there, because just repressing it, we know that doesn't work. So first, study this. You know, there is this story. There were several lions that were inside a cage, and some lions there, of course, they all wanted to go out to break free. Some of them began to organize the other lions to create a revolution. Some of them were preaching that somebody would come and open the door. So they were all engaged in some activity, and there was a lion that was just sitting, watching. So the other lions said, what is this lion doing? He's not helping, and of course, when we break free, he will break free, and he didn't do anything. Finally, one goes and says, so what are you doing? Don't you want to break free? Yes, of course, he said. So why aren't you doing something? Well, I'm doing something. what are you doing? And he says, I'm studying the nature of the cage. Because when I see how this cage is keeping us, in prison, I will know how to break through it. So the idea is that to work with ourselves, we have to study, to watch, to become aware of whatever psychological or emotional mode of reaction we have. So don't do it blindly. Begin to watch your impatience. Begin to see why. Behind there may be fear. Sometimes we are impatient because we are afraid that if something is not done in a certain way, it will produce suffering or it will fail. Sometimes behind impatience it's just that we need to expand our mind to see that there are different ways to do things. There may be many reasons for the same reaction. So begin to watch it. As you become aware, that very awareness will produce certain order. And then you can check your action. If you see that you are going to be impatient, if you are aware, you say, okay, I won't give in. At the beginning it depends. There are some reactions that are too strong, and it will take a lot of trying for us to be really able to choose and say, okay, I won't give in. If the reaction is strong and you keep reacting, that's fine. If you are really trying to work on that very trying will produce a change. So just keep doing it. Try to keep working on that. And take this with a sense of adventure or joy or playful mood, not with ambition or frustration. Sooner or later, the reaction will slow down and eventually disappear. So meditation, morality, these things are important. Also, some sort of study is important also. Because you see that according to the views, the intellectual views that we have, we will know what to do or not. The study is important so that we learn what tools we have to work on ourselves, what kind of attitudes will help us or will teach us how to deal with situations. So some kind of study is important of any tradition that you feel attracted to. And finally, some kind of service. Because after all, we can take meditation, morality, study in a very selfish way. Again, as things to make this psyche bigger, better, stronger, more beautiful. So if we are doing that for these reasons, they won't work. Because in a subtle way, we are just doing the same, feeding the ego. So service is an attitude of trying to begin to be aware of the other. Not only service in the way of giving money, or that's also service, but service in a more basic way. Trying not to be so self-centered. When I'm going to sit, is that the last seat? Is that... am I in the way of anybody? When I'm going to get some portion of food, is there enough for everyone? It's a question of being aware of the world out there also, not only of ourselves. That will help us break through the self-centeredness that naturally we are born with. Because I feel my emotions, I feel my thoughts, my pain, and I don't feel yours. I can infer it, or I can have certain empathy, but my pain is always much stronger than your pain from my point of view. So we are naturally self-centered. Now, with trying to be more aware of the other, we begin to break through this self-centeredness. So whatever you do, if you are a householder or a scientist or a businessman or woman or whatever you are, you can live trying to incorporate these general principles. You can watch yourself as you do your daily things. You can try to act with morality because that purifies your nature. You can be aware, trying to see how you can be helpful, for people around. And then you can try to have some time for silence. And all these things are very general, and therefore you can apply them to your daily life. So in this way, your psychic will harmonize, will get more in tune with the perception of the real in you, and little by little, what is real in you will begin to express through that psyche. And then as that happens, you will actually discover that you are beyond your body, you are beyond your emotions, and you are beyond your thoughts, that they are all instruments of expression, but you are beyond. And when you discover that, then you will realize who you really are, and your life will really change in a fundamental way. So that's more or less what I wanted to share. Now we can open to discussion and questions and comments. Don't be afraid to say that you don't understand something or don't agree with something, because this is not just sharing knowledge. If we can arrive to certain comprehension, that would be great. So let us investigate whatever.
I really enjoyed you talk, Pablo. This is the second time I've heard you, but I wanted to ask a question about thinking. You mentioned the mind of thoughts, of thinking, and that stilling the thinking, maybe you were discussing. How is that, not only how is that possible, but I was wondering how to, what should we do with our thoughts? Should we eliminate our thoughts, or should we continue the thought process beyond a spiritual awakening, like you mentioned, or how is that process affected?
I think we have to do different things at different stages, and also some things will work better with one person or with another person. For example, at the beginning it may be useful to try to employ some techniques where we try to silence the thoughts, because we are like addicted to thinking. Just like, imagine if you are addicted to drinking, for example. The first thing you do is try to move away from it. So sometimes our mind is so used to be constantly thinking that it's useful to try to practice some techniques like watching your breath, or trying to focus your mind in one particular thought, or even doing yoga, physical yoga, and trying to be aware of all the movements and stop thinking. I think that's something that is useful, especially, to break that pattern of constant thought. Now, once you get to a place where you have more or less a mind that can be harmonized, it's not that you will ever stay with no thoughts for a long time, because the nature of the mind is to produce thoughts. Now, they can be chaotic, or they can be just like a flow of a river, and with you being able to direct them wherever you want. So once you get more or less to that place, you can start doing a different kind of meditation where you simply watch your thoughts. If the thoughts are not too chaotic, as I said, it will be easier for you to watch them without getting lost in the process of thinking. So probably at that stage you could switch to something more like Vipassana meditation, being aware of Dzogchen, or just the witness, 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 where you watch your thoughts. And then eventually you can maintain that state of awareness during the day. But it is also important that during the day you try to restrain your mind to certain extent, because we are using our minds 14 hours, whatever amount of hours, and if during our day our minds are all over the place, then when you sit to meditate, you have that very same mind that is trying to keep quiet, and it's very difficult. Now, even if we have to multitask, we can put all our concentration on what we are doing there. If we have to do something else, just drop completely that and do something else without being still thinking of what you were doing before. So even if you have to switch your attention, try to concentrate fully in what you are doing at the moment. That will be the training that will allow you during meditation to silence your mind. But it's a very hard work. It's fun if you take it as as with joy. If you take it with ambition, it's very frustrating because the mind is very difficult to calm down. It is in all the scriptures. Arjuna would say to Krishna, "Oh, this mind is like the wind, and how can you hold the wind?" So it is something that is not easy to accomplish, but little by little, like anything else in life, with doing it, you get to a place where you are comfortable with your mind. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Many years ago, I was doing a lot of meditation, and I want to say I did get to the point of being the witness, sort of my life on a daily basis. And I think I got a little freaked out by it because I felt dissociated in a way, and I didn't feel grounded, and I sort of let go of the practice. But can you offer any kind of strategies to be the witness, to get to that point again, but not feel so afraid of it?
This practice of being the witness was regarded for thousands of years, at least 2 or 3, as a secret practice. In Tibetan Buddhism, for example, these techniques of Dzogchen, which are basically letting the thoughts and emotion just do their movement, move by themselves, and you just watch them, would be taught to monks that had gone through I don't know how many thousands of hours of meditation and prostrations and morality. And you say, why? This is regarded as the highest secret teaching. And you say, why? It's just watching your mind. But watching your mind is something that produces changes and that is not so easy to do. So, for example, when you start watching yourself, many things may happen. It may happen that you get freaked out, as you said, because you start seeing how your mind works. And you start seeing things that you don't like. Now, it is necessary to know that the way our mind works is exactly the same way as the mind of anybody else works. When we say that there is one single consciousness of humanity, we mean that inside our mind is the saint and the murderer, is the liar. It's everything that can express through a human being is in our minds. Now, in some people, that will express in a way that is out of control, and the person will go and kill somebody. And in most of us, probably doesn't express in such a strong way, but we still have those tendencies, those reactions in ourselves. So we have to be ready to see within ourselves the whole humanity. When we are aware of this, then we have the courage to see and with humility say, yeah, why would I think I'm different? At this level of the common consciousness, that we are trying to watch, we are sharing exactly the same with the whole humanity. So I'm not different. And then when we go through that, we see that not only we are not different, we are all one. So that is something that may happen and requires certain humility, detachment, certain poise, that we are able to see things that we don't like without reacting to them. Also, it may, the feeling that, you are not grounded, as you said, may be there, because actually you are, in a sense, destroying certain seat of consciousness that was always the one that was holding your consciousness, So the personal ego feels all these things. But we have to be very careful. I mean, for example, if a tree is crooked, you can make it straight gradually, little by little, with a constant force, but not not in a too aggressive way. Otherwise, you will break it. With our psyche, the same may happen. So we have to see our reactions and try to go in a way that we are constantly leaning towards the right direction without being too forceful or too aggressive. Sometimes if we do this with ambition, we can damage ourselves psychologically. So see what happens. When you get this feeling, watch it. Maybe if the feeling is too strong, you can stop, meditating in that way for a little bit, think about the feeling, read about it, and then try the meditation again. The spiritual life is not so much a science in the sense of you follow a recipe and do an experiment. It's more like an art. We are dealing with something that is alive. So you have to see how that is alive, our psychological ego responds, and have some flexibility and see, well, how are we dealing with this in this way or the other way. So I would say it is a good practice, at least for most people, and try to do it gradually, to see. Stabilize itself in a sense, to ground itself, and then you do it again now from a different place, because what you did was there is a seed there, and then you let the seed grow, and then you start again but from a different place. So it could be, but also always know that some techniques may not apply or help you. There are some people that their minds are restless, so they probably need some techniques to slow down the mind. But some other people may have a very, slow mind, or like what they actually need is to develop more clarity of mind. So probably those techniques that tend to slow down the mind are not the best for them, and they have to work on meditations where one meditates on spiritual truths or trying to visualize a deity or things like that, help with the clarity of the mind. So don't get too attached to techniques just because a person is promoting the techniques. We may need different things at different points of our lives also. So this is why study is also important. Read about the different techniques, try them, see how they affect you, and you will know what you need to do in a certain point or in another point of your life.